Well, whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and get started. Okay. Good evening and Happy New Year to everyone who's viewing us this evening. Welcome to today's January 13th, 2021 Legal Contracts and Policy Board meeting. We're going to get started. Does anyone have any questions in reference to the meeting summary from December the 7th meeting? Okay.
No.
All right. If there's nothing there, we'll move on down the agenda to unfinished business, which is the proposed racial equity policy, and we'll turn it over to Dr. James to start.
Okay, I am going to make a futile attempt to share my screen and just let me know if you can see that. And then I'll try and zoom it to 200%.
That works.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
All right.
I can see that very well.
Okay. The issues that we had been discussing really didn't cover the first part of the policy. From my notes, it was really about equity and student discipline. And so I did review that again, and I would suggest that what I have highlighted be removed from the policy. And then we work on, we do have some existing policies that cover these issues and set that up as a separate piece of work, not within this particular policy. And I think that would, solve any issues we might have with our current discipline policies and code of student behavior, and then any items that might be in one of our labor agreements regarding student discipline.
I think that's okay. The if you go down to the very last part, your highlighted part,
yes,
where it says the review of disaggregated data, and resolutions will assist in identifying other areas of concern relative to student discipline. These actually will establish those things.
Yes.
I think at least that first sentence, part of the earlier thing said there will be a call for a review of disaggregated data and resolutions that are determined. I think if we just add the annual review of the data and resolutions, should happen. I think that should suffice.
So what we'll do is I unhighlighted it, and then we'll figure out how to incorporate it in the piece. It may just come after from this data analysis. We'll figure out where to put that in, if that's okay with you. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
And just to make sure, we're going to take this piece that we're going to take out of here, and we're going to include that in along with some of our other policies, and address it in that manner.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions, Dr. Akbar or Ryan? I'm okay with that. I think this would be a good idea to do that, and then we can move this policy along and get it moved to the rest of the board members, get it voted, and move forward. Okay.
What I'll do is I'll create a separate document with the language that's highlighted to be removed, so we don't forget that. So that can inform our work on either revising our other policies regarding discipline, or working out any issues and putting it back into this policy. And then I'll fix the part where we want to keep the last part of that last paragraph that was highlighted in this policy. And we'll probably get that sent out either tonight or first thing in the morning.
Okay, that's good. That's a quick turnaround.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any other questions in reference to the racial equity policy?
I don't recall anything else. I thought that was the
only section
the
we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a solid policy, not just because Dr. Akbar and I have both worked on it, but I do think it's a solid policy that we can have, and it will help the district as well as the students, which is the most important thing, helping our students. So we're good there.
Yeah, Finance Committee next week is going to pick up the financial piece and start to work with Forecast 5 and see what reporting metrics and how we can reach that goal in there. But I from a quick review today, I think we're most of the way there with those dashboards. So shout out to the tech department, Howard's department, on building some of those templates already in advance of this.
Yeah. Great. Okay.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Okay. If we have nothing else there, we'll move to our third point of the day is the 3.01 bylaws 0155. I'll turn that over to Mr. Pendleton.
All right. And I'll do the same. I'll present and zoom into 200%. It seemed to work. Nope. Not the 200%. How does 125% look?
That's still good.
Okay. Quick background here before,
Yeah.
and the edits look really good. Quick background here is, as Bruce remembers, we had two sets of documents. I think at the time Patrick Bravo talked about 2 sets of documents in Akron's history going back 100+ years. We had rules and regulations, which was carried forward. By the way, for those history buffs out there, we need to do some research. I have been told that Akron Public Schools was one of the first districts in the country to do board policies. So I'm going to do some research on that one. I just would like to find out the level of truth there. But we do have printed documents back to the early 1900s for board policy. They're called rules and regulations. And believe it or not, we just left those rules and regulations within the last 5 years. And what we were finding in a review with legal was they were conflicting with some of our Neola policies and overlapping, and we were having to combine both of those. And so this is one of the pieces that we had all great intent, but it never carried over. And that was the creation and the good work that the board did was of these standing committees. And so these standing committees really came into fruition within these last 5 years also with regularity and review and detailed review. So the first section, I think, unless anybody has any edits with those first 2 paragraphs, the purpose of this is, I think, well done. Make recommendations. We've talked a little bit about that in an advisory capacity. And really, and it's not even considered action, but we review second readings and could review a first reading. But any adoption of a policy has to be waived by the board and move forward. So it's adopted by the committee of the whole. And then it gives the president the authority to appoint as soon after the organizational meeting as practical or before, whenever, members to standing committees, but different from the state legislature. An agreement or non-agreement or refusal to serve on a committee isn't rules for censure or anything like that. These are just additional committees that are designed by board members. Now into the edited part of this. Committees, now with the newly edited part, committees shall consist of at least 3 members. Any board member may attend, however, only 3 board members appointed and the board president may receive compensation. We do the compensation piece mostly because of statute with board member compensation. a board, and for those who are tuning in, a board member cannot earn more than $5,000 in a calendar year, no matter if it's a committee, a PD event, a committee of the whole. And so we had to put some kind of limits on here and tracking mechanism in place, as the Akron Public School Board is a very engaged member of our leadership team. And we have meetings and we have committee meetings, much like a larger government or government agency. So we had to put some limits on there. That's why that exists. The board president, superintendent, and treasurer shall be ex officio members of all committees of the board. And that's just so we can be in an advisory capacity to the members. We have some edits here on the standing committees are as follows. Legal, contracts and board policy, finance and capital management, instructional policy, all of which have been active for the past 5+ years. The new committee, equity committee, in response to the racial equity policy and forever solidified in our board policy. All standing committees should be committees of the whole, meaning represented as the board, and we're going to notice these meetings. So these are official meetings. That doesn't mean that a conversation can't take place amongst an administrator and a board member. It just means when we're doing the business of the board, we're going to publicly notice these and hopefully someday return to in person, but probably still always maybe even project them. Who knows? Superintendent and staff member to serve as a liaison. I think we've done a very good job of that, is we seem to have the right administrator on these committees. We bring in special speakers. If it's related to student discipline, we're bringing in Dan Rambler and Mark Black and able to give you ground level information of how these policies are working. The next, board president and I talked about this here recently, but the board may appoint ad hoc committees from time to time to study very specific problems. And we've done that in the past. And so, as you know, ad hoc committees are temporary in nature. They have a specific lifespan, and they can be created and changed at any time by the board president. And that's so that the board can remain nimble and operate, based on need and when appropriate. And then the last part of it, which is also a new addition, is each committee may recommend periodic establishment of a group of interested citizens to review the activities of that particular committee within a specific time frame. Each board member will have the opportunity to nominate individuals to be a part of the group to be approved by the majority of the board. And we have had some experience with this, maybe not as formal as this committee, but just again, for those who are tuning in, this isn't something would be new to us. Whether it be business advisory, Superintendent James, whether it be outside community participants, we've had them participate, maybe not in the formal committee sense, but we have had participation from the community. So I would say of all the edits, maybe that one is the largest change to the committee. So with that, I turn it back over to the board and committee for any further questions.
Dr. Akbar, you have any questions?
Oh, you're muted. Yep.
Yeah, I just realized. I said the most brilliant thing, I promise you. I don't remember what I said, but the new portion at the bottom here, and I'm only asking this because it wasn't in the policy previously, and we haven't done it since, at least the board hasn't done it, even though there has been advisory groups that district does and brings us back that information, which I think has been very helpful. With this being added, do you see this operating a little differently than those advisory groups that you brought back feedback from? pass, or is this just basically putting in the policy what we've already kind of been doing?
I can give you my perspective, and I'm sure the superintendent has some probably different areas too. That last sentence, each board member will have the opportunity to nominate individuals to be part of the group, to be approved by the majority of the board. So on one hand, I like the opportunity. So we know we need to do a facilities master plan. The superintendent and the board and I have talked about that. We need to do that as we transition to the end of the facilities commission. And so there may be outside stakeholders that we want to bring in. Now, the one thing I really like about our committees is we're nimble. And so what you're saying here is if the superintendent wants to bring in a city official who has been a part of our dialogue with the LFI dollars, whether it's the commission, that the superintendent then has to get it approved by the board, right? And so if it's a special speaker, maybe it doesn't need approval by the board. So it may be an area that I would suggest we take a look at, because I think we do that kind of work all the time. We bring the necessary stakeholders to our table all the time. And then do we really want to wait for the next board meeting, which may be a couple of weeks, to approve that special speaker? And if that's not the intent here, if it's really to have somebody sit down more permanently, so maybe the question is back to the board, is it the intent to have somebody permanently sit on a committee who's an active member? Because, right, they're publicly noticed, so anybody can attend, but now they'll have an active speaking role, participatory role. And to date, the board, and I know from finance committee, and I'm not going to cite the actual board member, but I've talked to that person about it, and they were specific. We want this still to be the committee of the board, and that they would recommend we bring in stakeholders when we need them, or special speakers when we need them. So,
okay. Mr. Belton, when I look at this, one of the things I think of too is this is something that we use on an as and when needed basis, and not just something that's automatically there. But if, like you said, if we needed to bring someone in to sit on a committee to give us input, to talk about some things, to give us some insight, then we bring them on at this time. I think even if it's a speaker, I think it would, you know, if you guys, if the superintendent had a speaker that they wanted to bring, I think it's probably okay, as long as they just notify the board, say, hey, I'm interested in bringing such and such on to speak to the board about whatever the topic may be, and just let us know. I don't know that it always has to be, you know, at a meeting and it'd be approved, because I think it would take too long. It might be something that we need to have done right away. And if we have to wait to another board meeting, we miss out on some time, probably some valuable time. So I look at that as being if as and when needed basis, or if the superintendent or his staff needs have someone come in to speak, that they kind of just let us know in that respect.
Right. Exactly what Mr. Alexander said. And I'm trying to figure out how is the group of interested citizens to review activities different than committee, because they're both, in my mind, would be temporary committees that would be studying something very specific.
that's right. And again, a goal of board policy is to provide as much flexibility as you need and want. If you struck this section, you have the ability to do that. One, because we do it anyways. And there's no exclusionary comment in the policy. It says we can't bring somebody to a committee meeting to lend credibility or be an expert. And then two, as you mentioned, Dr. Akbar, we have the process of ad hoc. So, but I don't want to limit the board. I don't want to limit our opportunity to engage stakeholders. So maybe quick recommendation would be, at a minimum, delete the last sentence, strike it, up to including that whole paragraph, because we can and do have that kind of engagement. But
a good example is our like the COC Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
And there's one other one, the Review Committee, that looks at all of the projects and looks at the budget and then provides a report to the board. Those members were, you know, the city approves members and the board approves members.
Right.
And that wasn't, you know, we didn't have that language to create that. The board, you know, you want to give yourselves a lot of flexibility to cover situations that you may not even envision. Because prior to, what year was that, 2004 or 5, there was no such thing as a COC Advisory Committee. It wasn't until we did the joint use agreement with the city that we had the need, and then the board voted to approve that concept along with the city and city council, and then appointed the members.
Yeah, I see that more as a standing committee, but I don't necessarily see that as being an operation of the board. I see that more as being operation of the district.
Exactly.
So that's why
board
I'm
is
struggling.
Very different than those other committees.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I'm struggling with the applicability of that to this. I was trying to express that the first ad hoc seems to me, because, you know, just even when we did the student discipline ad hoc committee that I served on prior to joining the board, I mean, I was just a citizen.
Right.
And there was actually the vast majority of the people on the committee were citizens and teachers. So the ad hoc gives us that opportunity. The only thing I will add is this talks about specifically activities of a particular committee. The ad hoc part is more loose and broad. Have an ad hoc review committee of a particular committee. That's the way I would interpret it. Ryan, you could tell me if that's not probably a proper use of the ad hoc committee, that periodic establishment of a group of interested citizens.
Yeah, no, I think your interpretation is correct. Ad hoc is much more top down, whereas the committee work reference to the last paragraph is committee driven. So that being said, I would probably delete the last sentence and keep the first one. Each committee may recommend the periodic establishment of a group of interested citizens to review the activities. It might be to review or bring in expert, but again, we do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I mean, if we want the words in there, we can have it. Committees have a lot of flexibility.
Right.
Since we've kind of said we're not taking
right.
formal votes, then we can invite whoever we want to a committee.
Yeah. And Mr. Phillips, I think you're right there too. And when you talk about the ad hoc, I understand that, but I also think if we take that last sentence out, it might be good too, because we may have some type of committee or recommend some type of committee for whatever it may be, and it doesn't really have to come from
right.
Each board member to go. There might be something that, say, Dr. Akbar said, hey, here's something we want to do. He has it on his plate that he wants to have done, and he can say, okay, we're going to probably bring in these individuals, or perhaps someone come in, and then we bring it to the board and we move with it, and we don't have to do no like says no voting that will be required or anything of that nature. It's just a matter of discussion, having some discussion, get some ideas, and then taking it back to be worked on.
Okay.
And that includes, like I said, community members, whomever it may be, people to come in, the superintendent may want, or president may want, or any of us.
As soon as I figure out the strike through button in Google Docs, I'll do that.
Friendly all the time.
No, it's not. All right. So looks like there's consensus to leave that first sentence, but delete the second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was there?
Yeah. The other thing.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the other thing for me is if the committee feels like they need something, I don't think people who aren't on that committee needs to be involved in them deciding what they need. So I like the way the first sentence reads is the committee can decide this is what they want, and then they can do it.
Right. We'll figure this out. Okay. Any other questions, comments on 155 committees?
I didn't have anything.
The only thing I had was the section in red that says board president be ex officio. I think in the new structure, I think the board president part needs to be taken out, and just the superintendent and treasurer shall be ex officio committees. Because the way if we pass this, in order to balance everything, the president needs to be a member of every committee. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and you'll maybe have to help me. Does ex officio, okay, so I was the one that added this in here some 5 years ago when we were doing this edit, because we wanted the board president to be able to attend every single, not just they're a member, but be able to attend and participate officially every committee, but also the superintendent and treasurer. They're a member of all committees.
Right.
So that was my intent. So tell me.
Not just the standing committees. This is all committees regardless. Got it. Okay.
Just because not just because the superintendent does the superintendent things and the treasurer does the treasurer things, but we're agents of the board. We can actually sign on behalf of you. So it would behoove us, if we're the ones signing contracts, that we can go to any committee meeting we need to.
Yeah, the question wasn't about the superintendent or treasurer. I thought that was it was about the board president, as we changed the board committees, the standing committees. That's why I was saying maybe the board president part needs to be taken out, but all committees of the board, that will include ad hoc committees or even these exploratory committees. So that's why I said, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, but Dr. Akbar, you as the president, part of every meeting, whatever meeting we have, whatever committee has, whatever, you're part of that automatically as the president.
Any other questions, comments on this policy? I think we're ready to go prime time. Okay. And
Mr. Pendleton, this would be our second reading of this here policy, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
It is, with the edits in the last paragraph. We'll get that to board if I can ever figure out the strike-through button.
Okay, great. That was gonna be my next thing. Get it out to the board so they can, other board members, so they can see it and if they have any questions. Okay. Have nothing else there. Let's move on to our final point here is Administrative Guidelines 7250, commemoration of school facilities, and I'll turn that over to Dr. James.
Okay, and I will present. And let me know, is that okay, the view?
Can you get any bigger? That's a little better.
Is that it?
Yeah.
There's only actually 3 things. So these were items from our last meeting that were outlined as, we wanted to see. The first one was, in all cases, naming rights are in effect for a minimum period of 10 years before being reconsidered. If we add that, the section I'm highlighting, I would recommend that we remove it. It would be this here, because that's how it was. That's the language from before. The part that's bolded and in parentheses is the recommended change. So basically, moving forward, any naming rights would be you know, for a minimum of 10 years before they could be reconsidered. So they're not in perpetuity, not for the useful life of the facility, but a minimum period of 10 years before being reconsidered.
And Dr. James, that doesn't mean that, just so everyone knows, that doesn't mean that it's just going to be 10 years and this person will have their commemoration and then it's going to be taken down. It's just up to 10 years before it can be reconsidered.
Before it can be renewed for, you know, another period of time.
Got it.
I mean, I'm okay with that.
Okay, and then under process, the other bolded one, the last sentence of that first paragraph, you know, about soliciting community input. That time period for that should be established by the board. And I think that should be done on each individual basis and not just saying it's going to be this, this, or this, and leave you more flexibility to handle that. And the other one was, you know, doing a background investigation potentially on any individual being, you know, recommended for a naming, and then discussing that before board members approve the rename. And that was it. Those were the three things from the last version of this document.
I'm okay with that because I do remember the discussion. We thought that we requested that you make those adjustments and put them in the administrative guidelines. Yes. So I'm okay with that.
That covers it. I'll make the this one adjustment with this highlighted piece, and then I'll unbold those sentences, and we'll have that ready to present at the next board meeting.
Okay. Great. Dr. Akbar, you have any questions on this one?
No, I think we've moved in a very good direction with this, and we're ready to go. Just in time for the Kenmore Garfield discussion, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good.
Which will be timely because in our project meeting, they need to have some answers on those issues.
Do you know the date for that? So that maybe if we do pass this.
Yeah, I'll have that information for the board meeting because one of those dates is early April. I think for like the, it may be like mascot issue and color decisions.
Okay. Yeah,
or
we might want
of it because there's some artifacts that we were going to bring. Like if you walk into that one entrance at Kenmore where there's I think it's in sandstone, it says Kenmore or Kenmore High School. They wanted to remove that and place it at the new building. And there's some other items that they wanted to take away, you know, and that we're storing even from the old Garfield that we wanted to incorporate into the new building. So we'll have to, I'll have the dates for that. Decision-making deadlines.
Right. Okay. Great. Well, anything else for the good of the order?
No, I think we're good.
We're good.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, thanks to everyone for attending, and thanks for the community members who are watching. And at this point, we will conclude with our meeting. Everyone have a great evening.
Okay. All right.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.